and welcome to today's episode of the Business Meets Fitness podcast with your host Lauren Tickner, and today's episode is awesome. I'm really excited about it, and I wasn't expecting it to pan out to be how it was, and I tell you what, it has been 100 times better than I thought it was going to be. My guest today is a best-selling author. His name is Craig Ballantyne, and I knew this podcast was going to be great, but I didn't think it was going to be quite as good as it truly was. Craig and I connected on a level that I've not ever really connected with a podcast guest with before. It was incredible. I'm so excited about this episode, and if you like it, please do share it on your Instagram story and tag me at Lauren Tickner, and also tag at Business Meets Fitness, because if you share it, then that means that I can continue to get awesome guests like Craig on the podcast. So I'm really excited about it. I'm going to get straight into today's episode. I really hope you enjoy. Craig, hello, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome, Lauren. Thank you so much. This is going to be a lot of fun.
No, I'm super excited to have you on because, I've heard a lot about your book. I'm super gutted that I haven't been able to read it yet, but I will definitely be picking up a copy. And the title of the book is all about your perfect day. So, Craig, I would love it if you could just run us through how your idea for this book came about and why it came about, and a little bit, a bit of a background about you, really.
Well, I was a personal trainer about 15 years ago, and then I started suffering from severe anxiety attacks because I had so much going on, and I was living a little bit of a hypocritical life. I was working really hard during the day, but then I was also going out late on the weekends, going to the pubs and all that, and it caught up with me. I was about late 20s and had these really bad anxiety attacks that sent me to the emergency room a couple times, and I realized I needed more structure into my life, and so that is put me on a 10-year path to creating this book, which is all about having a great day every day in your business so you move ahead towards your legacy. So you have a great day in your business, but also so that you have time, free time at night to be truly present with the ones that you love, whether it's your family, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. It's really about having the best of both worlds.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. So you were a personal trainer. So how old were you when you started that? Was it straight out of college or?
Yeah, pretty much. So early 20s and, struggled at first and then became successful, and then also started an online business around the same time, was writing for Men's Health magazine. So had lots of exposure and credibility that way, and sold hundreds of thousands of copies of my turbulence training videos on the internet. So I actually became so successful that I had what I call the paradox of freedom, where I was able to work as much as I wanted or whenever I wanted, and I worked too much, but I was also able to go out a lot because I had lots of money. So I was spending it silly, and that got me into a bit of trouble. Yeah, it's that whole kind of passive income thing as well. When all this money's coming in and you've got so much free time, but then you also, whatever input you put in is the output that you get as well. So trust me, I feel you on that, because I guess that's pretty much like the way that I live at the moment. The input that I put in is the output. And I think that's the same for a lot of maybe personal trainers or anybody who works in the online space, because the business relies on you. It's all around your personal brand, and it's all around however much you put in, you get out. And so I think that it's very interesting, and it's incredible that you are able to talk about the anxiety that you suffer from, because I as well suffer from anxiety. I have done ever since I was really, really young. And I think women are potentially better at talking about it. I don't think men are very good at talking about it. So we're not very good at talking about too much. You're right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think just everyone in general, mental health is still this thing that people struggle to talk about, and it's understandable because it affects you to such a great degree in your life every single day. And so I would say, Lauren, one thing that's very difficult for people to talk about it is it's very difficult to explain it to somebody. If you had a broken arm, you could easily explain, hey, yeah, I've got this bone in my arm and I broke it, and it's very painful, and everybody understands that. But when you look totally normal and you say to somebody, I'm kind of freaking out right now, and I'm really anxious and I don't feel really good, they look at you and go, you look totally fine. And it's that black box. And we also don't understand it very well if we're not educated about it, which is why I wanted to share my story. Yeah, no, that's just giving me goosebumps. I cannot relate more. And I think that so many people are suffering in silence, and, it's hard to speak up. So hopefully podcasts like this will be helping people. And I know for sure that your message is going to be helping people. So when did you kind of get to the stage where you were like, right, I need to do something about this now. And what was the first step that you took? You said you went to the emergency room and stuff for your anxiety. Did you feel like you were kind of having a heart attack? Because I know that that's what a lot, because like when I have a panic attack, like I feel like I'm having a heart attack and I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah. So the first one was on New Year's Day in 2006, long time ago. And I, really had earned it over a couple of days of going out pretty late and working very hard, coming up to the Christmas holidays. And so I woke up on New Year's Day and I literally had, my heart was pounding and I could barely breathe. And I was I had tingles from the top of my head down to my end of my fingertips. And so I paced around my apartment the entire day. And eventually I just said, I give up. I got to go to the emergency room. And the funny thing was, as soon as I walked outside, got some fresh air, I started to feel better. As soon as I got in the taxi cab and asked the driver to take me to the emergency room, I felt better. And as soon as I got to the emergency room and I walked in and I said, I think I'm having a heart attack, which is a very embarrassing moment in my life. The guy looked at me and went, originally he looked at me and like, what are you doing here? You're going to, why you're bothering me? And when I said that, he went, oh, and he got me to the back. And then a nurse came in and she calmed me down. And I left there like an hour later feeling totally fine, which was the problem, because then I went back to some of my old ways. And I had another one a couple months later where it lasted 6 weeks. And I tried to, tough it out for 6 weeks, but eventually went to the emergency room again. And then it was after that I put in place some strategies, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just want to go back all the way to something you were saying about a lot of people do struggle with this. And I think whether you're successful or whether you're just getting started and you don't know what to do, both of those bring great opportunities for anxiety. So when you're successful, like I was, you have all these opportunities. And I'm sure with all the Instagram followers that you have, all the success that you've had, you get people asking you to do all these things all the time. Hey, partner with me on this. Hey, do this, do this. You can do a million things. And when you're successful, you get overwhelmed with opportunity, and that can cause you a little bit of anxiety. On the other hand, when you're just starting out, you don't know what to do. You're frustrated. You feel like you're doing all of this work and you're like, when are the results going to come? And that can bring you anxiety. So anxiety is across the board and anybody can get it. And you hear about successful entrepreneurs and celebrities getting it. And that's just because we are overwhelmed and we need to deal with that.
Yeah. So, it's that kind of paralysis of opportunity. There's so much going on. You don't really know what, as you said, there's totally different scales. It can be, even if you feel like you haven't achieved anything, that can give you anxiety in itself. And then when you're super successful or quote unquote successful, however you define that, is going to be totally different to everybody. But, you might get to having this massive team under you and you've got so many different things to deal with, tons of different meetings. And it's all relative. And for you, even just despite the fact that, you may think for you it's a small scale thing, but for someone else it could be big. And when it's mental health, it doesn't matter how big of a problem it is. If it's a problem to you, it's something that needs to get sorted. So Craig, I'd love to, if you could kind of dive into the first kind of strategies that you put into place after you were like, okay, I've had this second panic attack now. This has gone on for 6 weeks. And also before you get into those strategies, I'd love it if you kind of explain what was going on in these 6 weeks. Because to have a panic attack that lasts 6 weeks is that's just, mind blowing. Gosh, can you explain how you felt or?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I woke up one morning in March of 2006 and I had this really weird dream. And again, it was after another binge drinking weekend. So obviously just get that in order. If anybody's listening and they party too much and go out too late, get that under control, obviously. But I woke up and I had this sense of impending doom. That's the only way I can describe it, Lauren. I just was like, something weird is going on here. And it got worse over the course of the day. And that elevated heart rate returned, a little bit of tightness in my chest. I couldn't breathe very well. And the tingling from the top of my head down to the end of my fingertips. Now, I have a master's degree in exercise physiology. And so I said, okay, I feel like I'm having a heart attack again. And that just, gets your wheels turning. And if you keep all of this stuff inside, as you mentioned earlier, if you suffer in silence, it only makes it worse. So over the 6 weeks, I tried to fight it off. I could only sleep from about 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. I did a little bit of yoga. That would give me a little bit of relief, but it would only last for a little bit. And so I realized I needed to try more therapies. And so I did Tai Chi. I did yoga. I did meditation. I even tried something called Qigong, which is a standing meditation. And I hated doing all of them. But I knew that one of the biggest problems was I wasn't breathing properly. And most people listening were like, what do you mean you're not breathing properly? Like, you're alive, you're obviously breathing properly. But I'm like most people, especially when we sit down at a computer and we get stressed out, we're hunched over and we breathe from our upper chest. And when you breathe from your upper chest, you have those short, shallow breaths. It's like you're hyperventilating. And that means you're blowing off more carbon dioxide, and it leads to more adrenaline in your blood. And adrenaline is one of the neurotransmitter hormones in your blood that actually causes anxiety. So the more you do like that, the worse you're going to get. So I had to learn how to do classic yoga, meditation, belly breathing. And when you do that, you can calm yourself down in about a minute with a big 4-second inhale, fill up your belly, hold that for a couple seconds, exhale slowly for about 6 seconds. And if you do that for a minute, it'll feel like the weight of the world's off your shoulders. Now, it's difficult, but you can also use guided meditations that slow down your breathing. There's so many of them on YouTube, very, very helpful. So that would kind of give me a little bit of relief, but it wasn't until I went to the emergency room the second time after the 6 weeks. You're just not able to concentrate and focus on your exercise or your business, whatever it is. You're just totally not present. You're probably at about 60%, even on your best day. And I went to the emergency room again. And the key to this second visit was they ran a couple of tests. They gave me a chest x-ray. They gave me a heart rate monitor. I took it home for 24 hours. And when I took it back, they said, we'll call you if there's anything wrong with you. And they didn't call me because there was nothing physically wrong with me. And that was a big breakthrough because maybe I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, but it's like, you think, oh, there's something wrong with me. And go ahead.
I know, just like butting in, because I actually have had that twice as well for 24 hours. So, I mean, the first time, and I remember even when I had it, and I had it for the whole 24 hours, I literally, the whole time I was like on edge because I was like, oh my God, I have this thing attached to me. Like, there must be something wrong with me, my heart rate. And because I feel like when you focus on something like your heart rate, it gives you
exactly.
I remember my dad saying this to me one time when I was about 6 years old, one of the first times that I kind of had a panic attack. He was like, Lauren, the reason why you're having heart palpitations is because you're focusing so much on your heart. And I think that is just one of the most truthful things ever. When you focus in on something, it becomes so apparent, and everything anyway, so sorry.
It all magnifies. And
right?
And I use this term, you got to get out of your head when you have anxiety because your wheels start spinning. It's like, oh my goodness, I feel a little bit of tingling in my fingers. That means I'm having a heart attack. And now I can feel my chest gets tight. And what I feel, Lauren, is I always feel this burning sensation right around here whenever I get stressed out or have too much caffeine. Yeah. I've really been able to conquer it. I don't have anxiety attacks anymore. I can probably have a lot of caffeine and be okay with it because I've created it. They're built those systems, but I'm okay. Incredible. But yeah, it's really important that you brought that up.
No. That's really cool. And I'm super glad that you also brought up the caffeine as well. Because personally, I have absolutely no caffeine, because I know for sure that it's something that is going to give me anxiety. Even if I have a tiny bit, it's just one of those things. But everyone's different, and like I said earlier, it's all relative depending on you. So if to any of the listeners out there, if you feel like kind of caffeine gives you anxiety, then just don't have it. It's not worth it. It's seriously not worth it.
The caffeine increases the adrenaline in the body, and that's one of the triggers for it. And so fighting it off is definitely with that breathing. That breathing was huge for me, but also being told there was nothing physically wrong with me. And then I went home that same day. I remember going home from after dropping. Well, no, it was the same day of dropping the heart rate monitor off. And then within that 24 hours, I went online and I bought a book from an Irishman named Barry McDonough, and he has a book called Panic Away. And I bought that book, and I only got to the second chapter because there's 5 words in the second chapter that kind of cured me.
Just before you hear what those 5 words are, I just wanted to let you know that my personal branding course, Impact Through Influence, is officially open for enrollment. So just head to www.impact-through-influence.com or head to the show notes and just click the link in the show notes and you can enroll right away. There is also a payment plan now, because beforehand I didn't have a payment plan, but due to popular demand demand and high demand, I have now officially made a payment plan available, and everybody has been taking advantage of that payment plan. So head to the link in the show notes, and as a listener of the Business Meets Fitness podcast, I have given you a special 5% discount. Now, just know that this discount, there is only 10 of them available, so you want to be fast, get it right now. You can get the discount on the payment plan. I've done it just for you as a listener to the Business Meets Fitness podcast. The discount is applied already and it is available on the payment plan. So anyway, now let's hear about what these 5 words that Craig heard all about and that changed his mindset with anxiety. So let's get back into the podcast.
And when I read those, that was the final thing that allowed me to overcome the anxiety. And those 5 words are, there's nothing wrong with you. And when I read those, I didn't even read the rest of the book. Yeah. That was just enough to tip me over the edge to go, physically, I've been checked out. I'm A-okay. I've learned how to breathe properly. I've done all these things. Lauren, I even went and bought a dog because I read that petting a dog helps reduce your anxiety. So I bought this dog, and the first day, yeah, I know, it's hilarious. The first day I bought the dog, I tried to walk him around the block and he didn't want to walk. He's really stubborn. So that increased my anxiety. The second day I took him to the park to play fetch. He didn't want to play fetch. So that increased my anxiety. The third day I left him alone at the apartment, came back. There were all these notes on the door because my dog was crying. And they said, you know, if you don't shut your dog up, we'll get you kicked out. So I realized my dog had separation anxiety, and I had bought the dog version of me, you know? But eventually, you know, he's like one of my best, you know, he's my best friend now, and he does calm me down. But so I did all of those things, the breathing, the dog, the physical checkups, reading that book. And by turning over every rock, by being relentless and to figure out how can I control this, much like you've developed a lot of strategies, that's what allowed me to get free. And now I can control the stress in all those situations. And I get emails, Facebook messages, text messages from people going to the emergency room or, you know, waking up in the middle of the night saying, Craig, now I understand what you're describing in your speeches and in your book. I understand that. How can you help me? And I give them the strategies to get back to normal.
Amazing. And something that you kind of brought up there is kind of the whole topic of like irrational thinking, because when you're having a panic attack or when you're feeling like you literally think of they are like genuinely like silly, stupid things, but they make sense to you in that moment. And, you know, it's often like massively kind of over exaggerated and it's things that you're thinking too much about. And yeah, so it's just this massively like irrational thinking.
Right. And there's always those irrational things that trigger you. Like I was doing fine during those 6 weeks at one point. And then I ran into an old friend at the gym, and he started talking about a friend of his who was really stressed out. And the next thing, you know, the next day was like one of the worst days of that 6 weeks because of that one little conversation, put that little trigger into my head that, you know, there's something wrong with me, and it can really get you. So another thing that I didn't mention is when I do these podcasts, when I wrote my book, when I speak from stage about this, it's therapy. It's getting out of my own head. And when you focus on helping others, you have less anxiety because you're not thinking about yourself. You're not comparing yourself to other people. You're instead helping other people. And that's been a game changer as well.
I love that. Awesome. So yeah, this has been super valuable, and everything that you're saying, like, I genuinely cannot relate to more. It's kind of like me thinking back a couple years, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, and even just knowing that kind of you've been through the same thing, and that there's other people that have been through the same thing in a weird kind of selfish way, it's kind of comforting, I guess.
Yeah, every time I'd write an article about it, I'd get an email from somebody who I totally respected. You know, I knew they were very wealthy, they were great marketers, they were great business people, and they say, yeah, I struggle with that too. Thank you for talking about that. But they were too embarrassed to share it. So, I mean, that it's really my passion project right now. I'm writing a new book on it about everything an entrepreneur needs to do to overcome their anxiety. And that's going to be done this year, and I'm going to share it with the world.
Amazing. And I'm fully backing you on that as well, because I'm so passionate about it as well. I guess when you've been through something, you know, you are very like emotionally attached to it. And so it's something that I care truly about, because I know how paralyzing it can be. So just kind of shifting gears now, I want to talk about this whole perfect day formula. And this whole kind of, because I mean, I personally am such a believer in kind of like systematizing and like making sure you have a good morning routine, making sure that you have kind of good rituals and things that work for you. You know, they might not work for somebody else, but they have to work for you. And so I'd love to know kind of what your whole idea on this is, really, because I know that it's something that you've become very well known for. So if you could share it with the listeners today, that would be very much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a couple of ways of looking at it. Is that most people struggle with their morning routine because they're doing things, they're tempted by things that don't serve their bigger purpose, their mission, their business, their legacy, their relationships. And so it's very easy to get sucked into social media. It's very easy, people my age and a little bit older jumping into watching the news or reading the news and doing all these things that really can suck your time up like that. The next thing you know, 30 minutes is gone and now you're racing and you're reactive. So you do not want to be reactive in the morning. You need to be proactive. You need to plan ahead. You need to think about how those magic minutes in the morning are going to play out, because this is a time of day, and it's research proven that you have the most willpower and intention and discipline in the morning. So if you need to write a chapter for your book, if you need to film videos for your program, if you need to go and, write a little script for a sales message or something, it should be done in the morning when there's no distractions, when you have your greatest, clearest thinking. And so that's what I help people do. And the thing is you don't need 3 hours. You don't even need 90 minutes, 60 minutes. When I was a struggling personal trainer and I wanted to take my business onto the internet and become successful there, I was already training people at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I was getting up very early, but I got up even earlier and spent 15 to 20 minutes on my business every single morning. And in 18 months, I was able to quit my job as a personal trainer and go full time with my online business. Now, it wasn't overnight, but it was just 15 minutes at a time. And that's how important having a good block of work in the morning, even if it's not very long, can really set you free in life. Now, if it was 60 minutes, I would have moved faster, but that's what I had to do.
Yeah, no, seriously, I'm such a strong believer in having a good, solid morning routine that, mine's probably like 10 minutes long, not long at all. And I used to think that it had to be super long. I used to try doing stretching and yoga. I used to get up, right? I would get out of bed straight away. I'd wash my face, brush my teeth. I'd then stretch. I'd then try to do some yoga. I'd then go for a walk, come back, drinks. I don't even remember the other stuff that I was trying to do. I was trying to fit so much stuff in. And then when it got...
And then it gave you anxiety probably, right? Because you were behind the... Right?
I had so many emails by the time I had to get to work, and oh my gosh, It was just taking me so long. So now
I make these little videos, and I joke, you got to get up and got to do journaling. And then you got to do gratitude journaling, which is different than journaling. Then you have to do yoga. Then you have to do meditation. Then you have to do interpretive dance. And the next thing you know, it's 4 hours later, because there are all these articles online about the 14 things that successful people do before breakfast. And if you add it up, it's a 4-hour routine. Successful people don't do 14 things before breakfast. No. They do 1 or 2 things, and they do them very well. And so I have a bit of a different approach. It's very similar to your approach, but very different from a lot of what other people teach. A lot of people say, you got to get up, you got to do your meditation or your gratitude journaling. I actually tell people to go right to work for 15 minutes on their number one priority in life. And, the young people listening, they might have a little bit of credit card debt. If you sat down at your kitchen table for 15 minutes every morning and thought about how you can overcome your credit card debt, you're going to get out of credit card debt faster than if you just try to figure it out as you go along. Or if you want to write a book, you can write 500 words in 15 minutes. And if you do that 6 days a week, that's 72 hours in a year of clear, uninterrupted thinking. And you can write a 30,000 word book in 10 weeks doing that. So just give me a little bit of work on your number one priority first. Then you can reward yourself with meditation or yoga or exercise or whatever it is. But go to work on that number one priority, and that's how you'll change your life.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really cool that you say that, actually, because so what I do is I wake up in the morning, I'll do 15 minutes where I kind of just get myself ready for the day. Then I'll come down, sit in my office where I'm sat now for between half an hour to an hour, get some work done, and then I'll go for a walk. So that's what I like to do, because it means that I basically accomplish one, I call it like a unit of work. So I accomplish one unit of work in the morning so that it's complete, and it's just a small win for the day. So Craig, I would love to hear your morning routine.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. And I love the way you describe it, a unit of work. Deep work is another great thing to call it. And that's where I call that magic time, because in that hour, you probably were 3 times more productive than if you had tried to do that same work at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you're tired and fatigued. Yeah. So for me, I get up at 3:57 a.m. So I know that is crazy, but I get up at 3:57 a.m. because I set that specific time because I don't want to be late. I never hit the snooze button. I get up, I go downstairs, I pet my dog for a couple minutes because he greets me at the bottom of the stairs. And then I make a greens drink. And then I sit down and I write for about 60 to 90 minutes. And I have a set number of words that I need to write. And as soon as I'm done that unit of work, then I do a little bit of meditation, and I generally take my dog outside for a walk. Then I come back in, have breakfast, and do another bit of writing. Then I have some team meetings and I exercise before lunch. And the next thing you know, like you said, I've had all these big victories that the world can't take away from me, no matter how crazy and chaotic the afternoon is with meetings or with podcasts or emergencies. I've already won the day.
Yeah. It's all about the small wins, I think, because even something, even just making your bed in the morning it's a win for the day, and it kind of, I think, and I think you're a true believer in this as well, but it genuinely is all about celebrating those small wins, because they add up. They really do add up. And so, so now kind of shifting on from the morning routine, kind of this whole perfect day formula and like how to craft your perfect day. So, would you just be able to cover this topic in a little bit more depth for the listeners today?
Absolutely. So first thing I will say is to everybody who thinks, oh my goodness, this guy's going to tell me to get up really early in the morning. I'm not. Okay. It's not about the hour you get up. It's about what you do with the hours that you are up. So it's not about the hour that you get up. It's about what you do with the hours that you are up. And so what this means is I have some of my best friends are night owls, and they use this routine, this perfect day formula, to work from 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. They're totally different than me. Now, most people aren't going to do that very well. But if you got up, let's say people get up at 7 o'clock right now. If you can get up a few minutes earlier and have that 15 minutes of focus time in the morning, you're really going to move ahead at your job or in your schooling or in your career, your business, whatever. It'll be really helpful. So what the thing is that a perfect day starts the night before. So if you're getting up and you're doing your to-do list first thing in the morning, you're actually too late. You need to do your to-do list at the end of the previous day. So let's say that you have a job or you work in your own business and you want to shut down your work at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, great. So about 4:45, you are going to go and start creating your to-do list for the next day. You are going to do something that I call a brain dump. And a brain dump is really great for us people with anxiety because we get all the thoughts running through our head like, oh, I got to call Joe and I got to, film this video for Mary and I got to, run these errands. And you get all the thoughts out of your head onto a piece of paper. The second step is then to prioritize that list. Oh, you know what? That call with Joe, that's the most important thing I need to do. And I need to write that article for this website. That's the second most important thing I need to do. If I get those other things done, great. But I really need to focus on those two things. Then now you have a very clear path to being successful the next day. And then you break your day up into what you called units, work units. And so you have your first block of time early in the day. Then you can reward yourself with a little bit of something. Then you have another block of work and a little reward. And then you block in your exercise time and you make sure that you take care, have your self-care blocked in. It has to be on your schedule like an appointment, because if you get busy, one of the first things that people neglect is themselves. But you have to take care of yourself first in order to be a high performer at every level. That's the same way that every great athlete obviously has training and exercise and self-care blocked in so they can be a high performer. And then by the end of the day, you have been very disciplined and structured in the day. You've won your morning. You've had really big victories then. You've built systems to deal with the chaos that's going to come in the afternoon. And now you can concentrate on what counts at night. Meaning you can go and have, dinner with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your spouse or whatever it is. And you can actually sit there and not worry about checking your phone because you have to check messages. No, you can actually have a conversation and make amazing memories. So I do sound very structured and rigid, and I am during the day, but it's so you can be truly free in the evening.
Yeah, exactly the same. I mean, I couldn't relate more. I think everything that you're saying is just absolute gold. And I think especially kind of it allows you to be present when you want to be present. And it means that you can focus on the things that you really want to focus on. And it sounds like it's really hard to transition to this kind of, I suppose it's a lifestyle, but it's not as hard as it sounds. And it just kind of, it's over time you get really used to it. It becomes habit. Just like you wake up in the morning and brush your teeth, just kind of doing this, it becomes a habit, and it becomes very, very easy to implement, but you have to implement it in order for it to become easy. And I think that is a point that a lot of people miss. They'll try it one time and they'll be like, oh, that's so hard, I hate it, I'm never going to try that again. And then they don't try it again. But little do they know, if they just tried it 3 more times, it would have been really, really easy on the 4th or 5th time.
Yeah. And also it's that preparation in advance, because, like if you're baking cookies or if you're, having a party, everything's going to go smoother if you do the preparation in advance, right? If you get everything ready, if you prepare, you have the list. And so that preparation is genius. Mm-hmm. And if you think, okay, I want to wake up tomorrow and have a really productive day, but you have no plan for the day, well, the world is going to, impose its plan on you. You're going to try and check one message on Instagram, and the next thing you know, you're there for 30 minutes, and it's going to throw you totally off. So if you have the plan and you say no Instagram until 9:30 after I've done this, and this, it's not going to be easy. It's not even easy for me every day. But I've built in systems and public accountability, which we can talk about in a second, which is the secret ingredient to success. But I built in these systems that keep me away from my phone. For example, every night I turn my phone off. I put it in airplane mode. I put it in a drawer in a different room. And so when I get up in the morning and I'm very tempted to go and check Instagram, I have to go into another room. I have to open the drawer. I have to turn it on and take it out of airplane mode. And there are many days, Lauren, when I have gotten all the way to airplane mode and said, slap my hand, put it back in the drawer, and went back to work until it was time to earn the reward of using the phone. And so that's the systems, it's these systems that allow you to be successful. And I like to say, like, you're building a fence around yourself in terms of habits that keep you out of trouble, because most of the times we know what to do and we're pretty good at doing the right things, but it's the things that we should not do that can ruin our days.
Yeah, so true. I know for sure. This is something that I really need to get better at. And you've actually motivated me right now, because every day I wake up, and because I used to wake up every day at 6:30. Now I've just made it at 6 because I just find I like to have that, like you were saying earlier, that extra half an hour in the morning is everything. And the reason why it's so valuable to me is because I have a terrible habit of rolling over and going on Instagram. And then I'll wake up and I'll have about, 15, 20 DMs, sometimes more, that I've got from typically kind of like American people overnight. And most of them are really, really great messages. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, I need to reply to all these people because they're sending me so many nice messages. And I'm like, oh, I need to get back to them. And then I notice it's flipping 6:40 in the morning and I've already lost 40 minutes. And
and it's 1:00 back here in America. So I mean, it's like nobody's checking them anyways.
I know. That's so true. Oh my gosh, this has literally changed that. The fact you've just said that has changed the game for me.
That's why I go to Europe every summer, and I love going I remember being in Austria one time and thought, wow, this is so amazing. Nobody's bothering me all day long, because everyone was about 7 or 8 hours behind, and my friends in California were 10 hours behind. So I might, if I ever disappear, you might find me in Austria loving that time zone. But that's one thing to keep in mind. And the thing is, you mentioned almost all of them are positive messages, and that's great. But when you get one negative message that, gets in your head, like a tune you can't get out of your head, that negative message gets in your head, and you think about replying to it all day long, and it drains your energy. And so I used to have this with email. So back when I had my anxiety attacks back in those years, I used to wake up and go over to my, roll over and check my phone for email instead of Instagram. And it's 20 good emails, one bad one. And the next 4 hours were shot. And when I realized that, I'm like, oh, I got to stay off this for hours and hours and hours in the morning so that I can do the deep work. And what I want everyone to remember here is those unit blocks of work that Lauren mentioned is where you leave the legacy in life. It's where you make an impact that brings you thousands of followers on Instagram like you have. I mean, you've built up this amazing following, not by being on Instagram all the time, but by doing great things off of Instagram. And that's what drives the success. So I want everybody to keep that in mind. Like, you can't go and write a great movie script or a symphony or a song or create products by being on Instagram all the time. You have to remove yourself and get in that deep work to make the impact.
Yes, so true, so true. I was actually just talking about this with a friend of mine. Like, we were saying that we literally go on Instagram, we post, we get off Instagram, and that's it. We don't scroll for hours. Yeah, it literally bish bash bosh. Do the thing you got to do. Get off it and get back to the stuff that you really thrive at. Now, Craig, earlier you mentioned a to-do list. Now, I have a bit of a different kind of approach to to-do lists than a lot of people do, but I would love to hear your kind of approach to it. You actually mentioned something earlier which is very similar to my own approach, but I would just love if you could kind of give us a little bit of background on how you do your to-do list, and how, because you were saying about you prioritize the different units of work. I'd love it if you could just dive in a little bit more deep on that, and then maybe I'll say what I do as well, so that they can get the different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, most people's to-do lists are too long. And if your to-do list is too long, no matter how much you get done in the day, at the end of that day, instead of thinking about the victories and the momentum and the celebration, you're going to think, oh, look at all the things I didn't get done today. So in most cases, you need to cut, you need to chop off and say no to more things.
You're speaking my lingo. Speaking my lingo. Yes, I'm loving this. Keep it coming.
So in fact, your not to-do list might be even more important than your to-do list. And you talked about the Instagram, the way that you do Instagram is correct. And I actually teach my coaching clients that we don't call it social media, we call it business media. And it totally reframes it in your mind. Like, I'm going on business media to do something business related, and now I'm getting off and going back and doing my work. So what I like to do is have people script their days. And so it's like chunk of work here, reward, chunk of work, reward, chunk of work, end of day. And so you see, like, there's really only 3 chunks of work. And so there should be 3 major blocks, 3 major focus items. And that way it keeps you focused on doing fewer things, but greater things. So if you want to do great things in life, you need to do fewer things. If you want to do great things, you must do fewer things. And that means being less on social media and really focusing on those deep blocks of work. So it's, first of all, get all the stuff that you want to do, prioritize it, and then do a little bit of preparation for it. So as a writer, this is what I do. I'll write down all the stuff that I want to do. I'll prioritize it. And it's almost always a book chapter or a big article is the first thing I need to do in the morning. And then if I just stopped there, it'd be good. But I'd wake up some days and I'd go down to my computer and I'd turn it on and there'd be a blank screen staring at me and I'd have writer's block. But if I do a little bit of what I call process planning for it, so, put in a couple bullet points and subheadlines, now instead of a 1,500 word or a 2,000 word article, now I just have to write 500 words for each of these 3 to 5 bullet points. And it's so much easier. So much easier. So other people who want to make exercise a habit, if you wake up and you go, oh, I don't want to exercise, but you'll probably put it off. But if you have your exercise clothes right beside the bed and your shoes and you put them on, you're like, well, I'm dressed. I may as well go and do this. You've made the process and the path smoother and easier for you to go and build those habits, as you mentioned. So every time you do it, it becomes easier and more ingrained in your nervous system. So the next thing you know, all of this success, all of these habits are so automatic that it becomes very difficult for you not to do it, to not do the good things. So that's what you want to do. You want to make the good things easier and you want to block the bad things out. And when you do that, you can become very successful almost on autopilot. So that's how I build my to-do list. Always telling my clients, my friends, hey, listen, let's take a good look. Why are you doing this? Does this really serve you? Is it going to matter in 3 months from now? Let's say no to it. I just said no to a couple interviews today because as much as I want to be on everybody's podcast, I can't be on someone's podcast if they only have 100 listeners. I can't do that right now. Otherwise, I'd never be able to write my next book. So saying no is a little bit ruthless, but it'll save you so much.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said, is exactly what I do as well. So that is awesome. We're so on the same page.
And but what do you do different? You mentioned something different?
Well, it's because I didn't know what you do. And that's why. And that was why when you were saying it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But I guess the only thing different is that I call it a get-to-do list rather than a to-do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really cool.
You get to do it. You have the opportunities to do it, and that's what I like. But yeah,
I saw a post like that on Instagram the other day. It's more that it's just a real gratitude thing. Like, I get to do this thing. I'm excited about it.
Exactly. And perhaps that's because I absolutely love what I do. But I mean, I think, if you don't love what you do over a long period of time, that's going to damage you. So I think
it's going to be very difficult for you to do it too.
Exactly. No, so I think that's everything. And I loved what you said, business media, not social media. That is brilliant. And that has totally reframed it. I mean, I do that anyway, but we've all been there where we scroll down Instagram and liked a few too many posts. And so, when you think about it that way, awesome. And I think it's also good because it means that when you're thinking about it as business media, then you might go on Instagram and rather than just commenting some heart emojis or like a smiley face, you might actually write a really, really impactful comment on someone that is, that's going to make them feel good. So that's I think this podcast has been really, really great, Craig, and I've absolutely loved having you on today.
Well, thank you.
So I'd love it if you could kind of share where the listeners can find you.
Well, on Instagram. So Real Craig Ballantyne on Instagram. But if anybody wants to get a copy of my book, I have that at freeperfectdaybook.com, or you can find it on Amazon as well for the Audible or Kindle version. And then if you ever want to email me, I'm an email type of guy. You can email me at craig@godfather.com. Happy to help guide your audience through whatever anxiety issues or planning and productivity that they might be struggling with.
Amazing. And again, I'll put that all in the show notes. So thank you so much for coming on today. It has been awesome. And I will be following you very closely and reading your books as well. So I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
That wraps up today's episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed this awesome free content that I put out for you, then please just share it with one person. And also, if you could just leave me a little review, I would seriously appreciate it. If you can't figure out how to leave a review, then just Google how to leave a review for a podcast on iTunes' podcast app or Apple's podcast app or wherever you're listening to this on. You can leave a review pretty easily on the iTunes app. So whether you're listening to this, maybe you're listening to this on Radio Public, but if you could then go onto iTunes and just leave a little review, it's just the podcast app that is automatically downloaded on your iPhone, or if you have an Android phone, please just leave me a review somewhere. I would appreciate you so much. You can do it online, on iTunes, on your laptop or whatever. I just appreciate it so much. And if that sounds like too much effort, just share it on your Instagram story and tag me at Lauren Tickner and tag at Business Meets Fitness. Or even easier, the easiest option is just to tell a friend about it. Maybe send a screenshot of it to a friend or a link to a friend, because this can help so many people. And remember, through sharing something that's valuable with other people, you aren't just, you're not just helping me out. Yes, it helps me out massively. And I appreciate it so much because I put so much time into these podcasts. I spend about 8 hours recording, editing, emailing guests every single week, and pretty much probably more than that actually, every single week to put out this free content for you. So it's the least you could do for me. Seriously, I'm not doing this to kind of be selfish in any way. I'm doing this so that I can bring in more awesome guests, because having these conversations and sharing these conversations on my podcast is what it's all about. So seriously, I mean, you doing that is only going to help you in the long term, really, because it means that you're going to be able to listen to even more awesome interviews. If you have any recommendations for anybody that you'd like to see on the show as well, then tell me about it, but also tell them that you'd like to see them on the Business Meets Fitness podcast, because then if I come to contact them, they'll be like, oh, I've heard of this before, I want to go on that show. So that's what it's all about. It's all about sharing is caring, and I just appreciate you so much when you do that, because I put in the work. So if you could put in a fraction of the work I put in, I would appreciate it so much. Seriously, it comes from the bottom of my heart. And also, if you're someone who wants to build an online fitness business, I've left a link in the show notes to sign up to my free email training for growing your online fitness business. And I've already had amazing feedback, and yeah, it's going awesome. So anyway, I'm gonna end this now. I will see you in the next episode.